Angle it down. There we go. That's better.
Hello, and welcome to Property Game Changers. We're here live on the Property Game Changers Facebook page. So grab a cup of coffee and join us in conversation with people who have changed the game in property. We're celebrating the power of ethical property investing to really change lives. We're debunking the myth that you need a lot of money to get started in property. And we're inspiring each other to believe bigger, to be bolder, and to be game changers for good. And our guest today is the incredible Dan Jackson at Urban Shared. Dan has brought a whole new take on co-living in Southwest London. And he's focused on the customer experience and really using technology to boost that. And as well as showing what's in front of the curtain, Dan also takes us behind the curtain in his YouTube channel. And I so suggest you watch and subscribe. You're going to love it. And in his YouTube channel, he explains how he lost £10,000 on his first deal, and other properties have been making over £15,000. So do check out his YouTube. But meantime, spend time with us here and welcome Property Game Changer Dan Jackson. How are you doing, Dan?
I'm good, thank you, Steph. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good.
I'm very well. Delighted to have you with us.
It's good to be here. It's good to be here. This is the second time in a couple of weeks we've had a nice conversation. So
yeah, we have. So, Dan, for many people who get into property, there was a moment. Well, for other people, there wasn't a moment. Was there a moment with you that you just thought, right, this is it. I'm going to make a change. Property is going to be part of this.
Absolutely, there was. Yes. It was 2016, and I'd been contracting in banks in London for probably coming up to sort of 15, 16 years. And I'd always had a entrepreneurial itch. When I was a youngster, I'd scratched it a couple of times, but then I found myself firmly in a rut, and for 15 years was just really going through the motions. It was super easy, and that was probably the reason that I did it. But I decided I wanted to start something that I could essentially try and make a change, an industry that I could have an impact in. And it was round about that time when I started to look at property in general. And then more specifically, through research, I saw an opportunity to move into, at the time, HMOs. And then really, without there being a kind of co-living market that had been established at the time in the UK, I decided to move more into how we could really improve the customer experience. And at the time, as I said, co-living wasn't really a thing that people were talking about. But that my thought process was more aligned to that agenda than it was to standard HMO investing at the time. So we started to really focus on how we could create a really great customer experience in a market where that wasn't really a thing. So that was the moment back then in 2016. Yeah.
And you really have become at the forefront of this co-living movement. I was listening to a podcast recently where you were on the panel talking all about co-living and the real differences between the co-living approach and the traditional HMO approach, if you will.
Yeah.
And a lot of this that is about it is about the customer experience. So I know that you have brought technology to this. So tell us a little bit about that, Dan.
Well, my background when I was working was initially I was a software developer, and then I moved into sort of business analysis and program management, but all within the technology space. And I've always been fascinated by the idea that we can improve a process or make things more cost efficient, or increase the yield by using technology. And when we started this business, I was really excited by the idea of being able to use the mobile phone to deliver as much of that service as we could. Delivering a customer experience to lots of people means lots of different things, but to me, I was obsessed with the idea of using technology to deliver that experience. If you look at some of the now bigger players in co-living, they are developing bespoke co-living solutions where geographically everything is in the same location, and then delivering community experience on top of that is actually quite easy, because you build a swimming pool or you build a restaurant that people can use. When you're doing it with existing stock, like we are in London, using rent to rent, the idea of creating community needs to be looked at slightly differently. So we were thinking, what could we deliver to our customers through the mobile phone that could enhance customer experience? So things like improved communication, improved maintenance services, the ability to buy additional services through the platform, and even move house using the platform to do that. And we're still really at the start of the idea of using technology to deliver customer experience. There's so much that can be done. I love the idea of our target market, which at the moment is the young professional, being able to find a property on our platform, being able to inquire, maybe do a virtual viewing, sign all the documents, maybe even move, order the moving equipment, order the moving services, through the platform, move in, have that property managed, engage in the community, and then ultimately leave, maybe even to another urban shared property, all through one platform. And that'll happen. It's just a question of when and I guess how, but that will definitely happen. The millennial is on their phone, an increasing amount of time, and it's just a question of time before, in my opinion, that the whole experience will be delivered via the platform, via the mobile platform.
And you have an amazing platform, because I have taken a peek at it in the past. Do you want to give a shout out for that? I don't know if you're letting other people onto it at the moment. So
currently it's still just being used internally. But I'm always happy to have conversations with people, because as we've introduced other people to the platform, we're learning much more about the things that people want. It's available there's information on the platform on the website. If you go to urbanshared.com, on the top right hand corner there'd be a button that says connected, and there's details on the functionality that the platform provides.
Brilliant. So urbanshared.com, also go there just to check out what Dan is doing in co-living in London. It's absolutely phenomenal. I think you'll love it. And the really exciting thing is that Dan is creating these properties from properties that he's rented. So it's simpler in some ways when you can invest and buy your own properties and do them. You can invest more potentially in being able to get them to how you want them, but you're doing that with rental properties, Dan. I think that's really to be commended, the level of quality that you're bringing to the marketplace there.
Yeah, and I would say definitely, if there are people that are watching this that are feeling as though excuse me, the rent to rent business strategy is either for those that are perhaps not concerned so much with quality, or maybe at the lower end of the market in terms of ability or financial financial resources, etc. I would dispel all those myths. I would say that actually as a strategy, it's absolutely fantastic. I think we mentioned this before, but my belief is that it's been essentially given a slightly poor name because of the way it's been marketed by various property businesses. But the concept of essentially signing a master lease and then using that to run a business has been used for decades in all the service industries, hotels. I don't think Hilton owns any of his own hotels, and therefore as a concept, it's absolutely fantastic, because we're able to take an asset and run it professionally, giving the landlord a much better level of service than he would get if he rented out to a family, and in some instances we can even improve his yield, and at the same time then deliver a product to our customers in a much quicker way than if we're having to acquire all these properties. So it solves so many problems, with the issue of in London, simply not enough properties, not enough rooms. I think that the UK is missing the number of new build targets every year and has done for 30 years. We're able to deliver a solution to 5 or 6 people, sometimes within a week. I think it's a great product. I really do.
Yeah, and so tell us a bit about getting started. This is the bit that does fox people often, and I know from your fantastic YouTube channel, I'm actually a bit gel about this whole YouTube thing you've got going on, because it's the production quality is so high level.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate that. I mean, I think there are 2 questions there. One was how did we start, and secondly, you referred to the sort of production quality. I mean, I think again in property education, the production quality isn't something that when we're looking at YouTubers that are providing information or trying to sell products into the property community. My general take on it is that the quality isn't fantastic. I think that we could do a lot to improve that. If you look at some of the YouTubers that are creating sort of cinematography that's insanely quality, it's fantastic, and you don't need huge amounts of expensive equipment. I've got a camera that is entry level and a microphone that is entry level, and an understanding and a skill set that's still beginner. But I'm able to produce quality content that I think is good quality, and I'm only going to get better. And I think that's great, because I think it adds credibility, and I think it's much more watchable if you've got quality content that people engage with. I'm still low on the views, so don't be scared to sign up and watch what I'm doing. And I've got loads of ideas for more content. It's really going to be more about how we started and what we've done to get to where we've got to now. There's going to be more content on co-living and what that means, and how I see the market evolving. I'm actually just having fun with it. It's good fun to I find it good fun. I never really thought I was that creative, but I think that's my outlet is doing stuff like that. So it's been good fun, and thank you for commending the quality. That's a nice compliment.
Yeah, I was surprised, but it's hugely engaging as well. You've got one.
You were surprised?
Yeah. I was. I thought, oh wow, Dan's really gone to town with these. It's very engaging as well. One of them is called "How I Lost £10,000." I think there's another one about how you made £15,000. So which one do you want to tell us about today?
Well, I think how I lost £10,000. Actually, I think that was a really good story. It was the first ever deal that we did. You asked how we got started, and it was November 2016 when I decided that we were going to create a shared living company, essentially, in London. We spent a month or 2 kind of planning that, and then in January we essentially started contacting every single estate agent in the area. We contacted through Rightmove, phoned them. It was quite an onslaught, I think, at the time. I've got all the stats around how many calls we made and how many emails we sent and how many viewings that I did. And in February, on the same day, we got 2 offers accepted, and neither of them we had agreed a rent-free period. One needed significant work. In fact, both needed a good amount of work. We paid a deposit on both. And at the time, there was myself and my then girlfriend, the 2 of us, and we were like, okay, so how are we going to get these up to speed, up to standard? And we found a builder to refurb one of them while we refurbed the other one. The refurb wasn't huge. We're not talking about massive kind of structural changes. The one that we were working on was essentially, it needed quite a lot of cosmetic stuff. So we sanded floors, we painted skirting boards, we changed all the, God knows why, but we changed all the power sockets to brushed metal ones with little USB connectors.
Wow.
And a Victorian property that was 100-year-old. Imagine when you take the old one out, the whole wall falls down because it's horsehair as plaster. So it was just a big eye-opening experience, and the period that it took to get that up and running was nearly 4 weeks. So this was a property in Clapham, and the rent, excuse me, was £3,450 a month. So we spent a month with it empty, and well, there's £3,500 straight away, plus the deposit that felt like we'd spent that, although we got that back at the end, together with the refurb costs, and then another 2 weeks on top of that as voids. That added up to a significant amount of money, and it was I learned huge amounts. We never made some of those mistakes again, and subsequent to that first deal, we made sure that where we could, we would negotiate rent-free periods, or at least marketing periods up front, or at least delayed payment on the rent, so that the cash flow kind of worked. But we learned huge amounts, and it actually, we only just handed it back, which is why I did the video, because I had the whole 3 years worth of data, right from that first deal that we did all the way through to when we handed it back to the landlord, just before the whole of the world locked down, actually.
Oh, so kind of handy. But let me ask you a question, because although it's titled "How We Lost £10,000," it was only you lost £10,000 against your forecast, but actually you still did make money on that deal.
Oh, it did. Oh, yeah. Thank you. That's an important point, isn't it? Yeah, we lost £10,000 on the prop. Well, the first year the property lost £10,000, and then years 2 and 3, I think we made in total over the course of the deal about £5,000, which is not great. But at the time, I remember a friend of mine saying that you pay to learn. And actually, if that had all gone swimmingly well, at some point, we would have had to have paid to learn, because that's the only way that I think you really do learn. So it was, whilst it was quite stressful at the time, we did eventually make some money from it. And some of the things that we learned, I could say, we've made sure that we've never made those mistakes again.
Yeah, it is a phenomenal business model when you think about it. You can rent and then make money, and even with the mistakes and the costs there, over the 3-year period, you made £5,000. It's not a huge win, but on the other hand, it's not a terrible loss either.
Well, I absolutely. I think if you look at the video, I might get some of the numbers wrong while talking to you now. But for an investment of £10,000 over 3 years, £5,000 is a 50% return. Which, if you just looked at that linearly year on year, that's what 18% or 15-16%, which is still better than if I put that £10,000 in the bank and done nothing. Now, I know that when we talk to property people, they are expecting double-digit returns year on year, and I understand that that's the case. But if you were to take that as an investment proposition to a non-property person, that would still be attractive. And sometimes we do forget that. I think that these deals, even when they don't work particularly well, are still relatively good in terms of their yield.
Yeah. And tell us about, well, we can't leave it there, can we, Dan? Let's move on to the other one, where you're talking about the £15,000 that you made.
So that's a property that we still have, actually. We took that property on in about April 2017. It was a 2-bed first floor flat in Fulham. And we we made a 3rd bedroom. The shared space was a big L-shaped kitchen diner with a huge sitting area, and it had a roof terrace as well. It still does. Really, really nice. I'm
interested.
Really, yeah, it's really lovely. Well, no, we're fully booked on that one, Steph. But at some point, I'll let you know when the room becomes free. It's a really nice flat in a nice part of Fulham, and as a 3-bed property, the numbers really, really worked, and we spent a little bit of money on an internal stud wall that partitioned the kitchen from that what became the third bedroom, and also a little bit of reworking so that the shared area, rather than it being directly off the attic bedroom, was accessible to all the tenants. And we started marketing. We couldn't agree a rent-free period, but we started marketing the property as soon as the builders were on site. We felt that it didn't take much to see what we were doing and to be able to see through the dust sheets and the walls going up, and that we could get people to sign up in that state. And we did. We found three. Well, we put a couple. We tend to put couples in en-suites and charge a little extra for the second person. So we put a couple in the ensuite and then two singles in the two bedrooms downstairs, and we've been operating it like that for 3 years. It makes again, if anyone goes to YouTube, they'll probably see a slightly different number, because I can't remember off the top of my head, but we make about 850 a month on that one, and have done since probably the fourth or fifth month that we were operating it. It's a really good deal, and the landlord is super happy, because this is this model enables us to clean rooms, clean properties much more frequently than a single let. And also we're doing inspections on a regular basis, so we know that the property is being looked after, and often in a single let scenario you might not see the inside of your property for 6 to 12 months.
And I just want to ask a question, Dan, because this is something that people ask me a lot. How much does it cost, or how much did it cost for you in Fulham to partition that room off, to build that stud wall?
A couple of grand. I think we spent we had a handyman who was able to, it was not, so obviously a non-load bearing partition, and we spent we had them plastered and then painted. I think it was a couple of grand. It wasn't huge amounts.
And the other thing, Dan, is that you tend to work mainly with letting agents. Is that right? Still?
We did to start with, yeah.
But you've now moved on to direct with landlords.
Well, yeah, I guess once you've established a little bit of a reputation, then you do find that you are approached by people. And we started off exclusively with agents. I figured out that was I didn't really go down the landlord letter route. I liked the idea of the immediate feedback from the agents. So, within 6 weeks, we were able to find 2 properties, but we were talking to agents every day. And it didn't take me long to realize that there were enough agents out there that were willing to let us work with them, that we could find a deal quite quickly. Whereas I felt the direct to landlord option takes a little longer, a bit more strategic, and not as much feedback. You could be sending HMO lists out and get nothing for 6 months and then a call. And I didn't feel like I was in control of that process as well as I was when I was contacting agents. So that would be my recommendation to start. If you're in an area that's got a significant number of letting agents, then you should be able to find, you only really need one to work with you.
Yeah. And if you're not in an area with a significant number of letting agents, it's not in an area that you can really run an HMO, really.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I think the best way is the multi-pronged approach, but you've got to choose where to start. And for you, agents worked brilliantly. And what are there any tips you would give on why you think you have been so successful in working with agents?
I really believe passionately in what we're doing. This for me isn't just, £600 a house, get forward and quit my job. This is I really believe that the shared living market has been essentially underutilized. I don't believe there's been much investment in the kind of shared living young professional market. Certainly in London, if I was to visit 20 shared homes, I'd be disappointed with 18 of them. And and that's feedback that I'm still getting from customers that come and look at an urban shared property, they'll often start the conversation with, I've seen 5 horrible rooms already. Well, so the bar's low to start with. The question that you asked was what differentiated us. I'm really passionate about improving and increasing the height of that bar and creating a product that young professionals enjoy and will look back on fondly, rather than having to live in a shared home because they couldn't afford another option, or a reason that kind of puts them into that product that isn't because it's a good product. And I know that there's still a long way to go. That with that enthusiasm that I was really, I'm not actually that enthusiastic about lots of things, Steph, if I'm being honest, right? But I'm really enthusiastic about the idea of changing this marketplace, because there's so much that can be done to improve it. You know, the use of technology, for example, in the whole kind of life cycle of a shared house customer. There's so much that can be done there. The community element, which is kind of the focus on co-living, there's so much that can be done there, so that people can move into a shared home and have a great experience. And that's there's still so much that can be done and improved, and we're looking at ways in which we can create a nationwide brand that can do that. Because at the moment, you know, there might be great operators, a limited selection of great operators in lots of different areas, but there's no one that's really looked at how they can deliver a consistent product nationwide. And that's something that I think would be an exciting challenge. And I'm working with a few people on that at the moment.
On a franchise model?
No, not to start with. To start with, those that are involved have got property in certain areas. So what we're going to do is we'll potentially, I haven't really spoken much about this in any great detail, but we'd look to rebrand some of our own properties under one new brand, and then really focus on consistent delivery of something as simple as a customer charter. What is it that we're actually trying to, what are we trying to achieve for customers in these properties? And I think if you, one of the things that I believe quite strongly in is empowering the housemate to choose their housemates, self-selection. And if you take that concept a little bit further and find people that want to live in sociable homes, that want to share their space with other people, and create the right atmosphere in these properties, then I think you'll be able to I think people would buy into the idea that there is more to living in a shared home than just the house itself. It's the community aspect. So the idea of creating some consistency around that is some of the things that we're thinking about to start with. So it wouldn't be a franchise model, but we would certainly be looking to find people that believed and understood in the concept of co-living, and who were willing to kind of buy into that as a concept. Sorry, you okay? We've got a cough.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah. I'm fine.
Good.
So you want people.
You threw me a little bit actually, because you disappeared and I was talking to myself and I didn't know what I was saying. So
yeah, it's all coming out now. So what you think was one of your superpowers was you had such passion for what you're doing, and obviously that comes across to the agents. Is this the same sort of passion that Margot and Rihanna are expressing towards you? I've seen on your
slightly different passion, that one, Steph. Yeah, slightly different.
Okay. Well, we talked a bit about what you're doing and how it is very different actually to what many people are doing. And I do encourage you, if you're interested in this, you're listening, to go check out Urban Shares and get a real further feeling for what Dan's doing. Now, what about you, Dan? How has it changed things for you and your family since you started in property a few years ago?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, obviously, I now have much more time. since I started the business, I haven't missed a game of cricket that my son's played in. Often I'm the only father. Often I'm the only father at these games. I haven't missed a game of football either. My daughter doesn't play so much sport and is a little older, so I see her less. Neither of them actually live with me; they live just around the corner. I've also been able to see my parents much more. So it was actually quite interesting because when I set this up, I thought that it was all about making more money. I thought that I was motivated by making more money. And I was earning quite a good amount of money in the city as a contractor. So I was doing okay. I earn less still now than I was then. But what has become completely evident to me is I'm much more passionate about the control of my time and doing things that make me happy. Seeing and hanging out with my kids and seeing my parents and being in control of my day is the biggest thing for me. And then the idea that I can actually influence a market, I can actually, I'm not so much massively excited by leaving a legacy, but I would like to think that people that have come through the urban shared business and have, experienced what we're trying to do would look fondly on what their experience, and that's a positive thing. And I think that we can only improve that. So that it's not about becoming super rich for me. It was at one point, but not anymore. It's about, quality of life and helping people.
Yeah, that is the riches, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because really you want the money to have the freedom. So if you've got the freedom, which you do have, you're creating your own income, you're making your own time, you're spending your time with the people who mean the world to you, rather than colleagues, in many cases, we're only tolerating and taking on levels of stress as well, in oftentimes that you don't really want to, about things that are not really that important in the great scheme of things. So kudos to you in getting started. And one of the things that I love about property is the freedom that it gives you as a person and your family, but also all the good that we can then do, because we can then become givers as well. And I know that you're doing a lot in that regard, Dan. So tell us about some of the things that you're doing to be a game changer, then, if you will.
Well, I, rather than kind of regularly, I contribute to a couple of charities, one that's quite close to my heart. But I think giving back there are lots of different ways of doing that. And I think aside from, small contributions to various charities, which I do from time to time, I coach the football team where I am locally. I'm involved in some of the things, in my local area. And actually in London, it's quite hard to feel like you're part of there isn't really a huge sense of community in certain parts of London. But I've been involved in well, my son is now under 13. I've been involved in the football and the cricket in Southwest London since he was 5 or 6. And that for me is a nice way of giving back, because I think sport is a really is a hugely important part of the development of children. I think you learn all sorts of different things about team play and various life lessons that you'll take with you throughout your career. And the volunteers that do that are, it's often a very thankless, tough job. So that for me is kind of where I'm sort of a little bit more focused.
So Dan, the you starting when you got started in property to the you now, obviously you've learned a lot. What are the things that really have helped you to become the man you are today, who is a co-living expert and specialist and has so much passion for for the sector and improving it. Are there books or resources or ideas that really change things for you?
That's a good question. There's the sort of, if we specifically talk about the kind of co-living side of things, there's as a movement, there's now more and more awareness of it as a I guess at some point I'm guessing that some of the larger property companies will start to offer courses on co-living, but at the moment the material that you find is more kind of desk-based research into the benefits of co-living and why as a marketplace, or why as a sector of the property market it's growing, and all those sorts of things. And I'm quite plugged into various Facebook groups. We've created a group that is specific to co-living, and within that group there are a lot of people that are kind of in the HMO marketplace, and kind of the interest is being piqued with regards to how they can maybe look at their HMO business in a slightly different way to incorporate some elements of co-living. In terms of more general books, I mean, I've always been a big fan of non-fiction biographies, books on startup technologies and methodologies, and how companies that have become successful have been created and operated. And you can learn a lot from good things and bad things, and things that can inspire you by reading it, by immersing yourself in that kind of stuff. But actually now I probably spend more time talking to people and networking. I'm not a huge prolific kind of networker. That's not really my bag, but I do like talking to people on a one-to-one basis who are successful or trying things or innovating and doing things differently. And I think we all find different ways of getting our information, but for me that's quite a powerful and useful way.
And what are your plans for the future, Dan? Where do you want to take things from here? Well, I suppose you've actually said you want to take them nationwide.
Yeah, so Get Married to Margot Robbie is next weekend,
Okay.
and then it'll be taking the concept of co-living. Is it possible to build a nationwide brand? That's the question that we're trying to answer. I've got my fingers in quite a few different pies, but that's the one that for me at the moment is the question, is the itch that we're scratching.
Lovely. Well, it's been great. It's been great having you with us today. Dan, I know that you will have overcome many challenges in getting where you are. And what's the advice that you would give to people who are perhaps, at the moment doing IT contracting or and they're thinking about getting into property? What advice would you give them?
Well, I mean, looking at how following my path, I spent a fair amount of time researching different opportunities within property, and I'll give you an example of why that research was important. If we look at, and let's assume that the skills required to deliver anything in property are consistent and the same, so that needn't be a factor that we look at. My personality is such that a long development time with chunks of cash would never have worked for me. I needed to find something that was delivering something similar to a job that I'd been in for 15, 20 years. So I was able to use that knowledge to be able to decide the strategy that I wanted to work on. I could never have done developments that didn't pay for 6 to 12 months or whatever it might be. And at the time, that was something that turned me off that as a strategy rather than any other reason. So I'd definitely say play to your strengths is important. Understand what it is you're trying to achieve, and spend time thinking about that. I really don't think that people should get into property just for financial freedom. And I know that a lot of people might disagree with that, but if you do that, at some point you won't want to get out of bed, because it isn't always about money. You need to have some sort of reason to do it. There needs to be, a game plan that drives you, that creates some passion within you to be able to carry on, because there are some dark times. It can be difficult, that. You can spend a lot of time questioning the things that you've done, and if you don't have a way of kind of seeing the wood from the trees, a longer term plan that's more than just because I want to be well off, then you won't succeed. So have a plan and have a reason. They talk about the why, don't they? It is important.
What's your why, if you can say?
Well, my why is my family. My having the freedom to see my family more, and changing a market. Now it's I want to prove to myself that we can actually change, the co-living market nationwide, and then who knows, maybe the world.
Yeah. Actually, saying that, I did see your interview as part of a co-living network, which is a global network.
With Christine from the Co-Living Code.
Yes, Co-Living Code. That was it. Yes.
Yeah. Well, co-living is a global concept now. We are probably 3 or 4 years behind. Certainly, the States and Asia is co-living has definitely kind of advanced in those marketplaces quicker than we have through various reasons. But there is now, Europe and UK, much more emphasis on it as an asset class and as a solution. And one thing that's quite interesting that I think everybody needs to remember when we're kind of talking about an asset class as big as this, is that there will be lots and lots and lots of people that have become very successful in their, if they choose co-living as a business. This isn't a kind of a winner takes all market. So it isn't a question of getting there first. It's a question of doing the right thing, finding a little bit of an angle, and then plugging away. So, if we were to get it right in the UK, well, why wouldn't we look to, see whether that model could scale into Europe and wherever else we might choose to think about that. So yeah, that's something. I'm not sure whether at this point in time I'd actually have the appetite for red eye flights to New York and back again, because I quite like being at home, but who knows.
Yeah, no, that's phenomenal. It'll be really interesting to see what happens there. And I think co-living, co-working, and all of that, it'd be really interesting to see what happens. And almost living in smaller spaces has become aspirational, actually. There's quite a lot of YouTubers that are all about, tiny living and smaller spaces and minimalism. And that is becoming, if it isn't already, aspirational.
No, that's very true. I followed you when we last spoke. You pointed me in the direction of, is it Matt D'Angelo?
Yeah, Matt
D'Avella. That's right. And I'd actually come across the documentary that he I think he'd produced the Minimalist documentary, hadn't he, with those two other lads? I'd seen all that before, because actually I love that idea as well. I think the idea of simplifying and decluttering and just holding on to things, physical things that matter and mean something to you, puts your mind in a much better place, doesn't it? When you go into a cluttered room, you feel stressed. When you go into a space that's been nicely designed without clutter, you feel relaxed. I found a few more YouTubers that are kind of all talking about that, and yeah, you're absolutely right. It's quite interesting, isn't it, how material possessions have become less important, and experience and design and kind of thoughtfulness have become words that more people are using.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Dan, for sharing your story with us today. It's always a pleasure to have you on. I really look forward to the festivities and celebrations with yourself and Margot.
Did you get the invite? I know that you're a little jealous, but it's.
Yeah. Switching swiftly to Lois has made a comment. Now that's the way to go. Simplify everything. Lois.
Lois is also that's also a YouTube channel that I'm following as well. I'm enjoying that. It's a lot of fun to see that. It's got a combination of a lot of different things. Whilst I'm not necessarily interested in fashion, Lois's journey around sort of her desire to take control of her own destiny and work in property is quite cool, and she's got a nice personality, and it shows in her videos.
Oh, that's exactly what I think, Dan. When I watch your videos, I really am into it. You just name them beautifully as well and really get me excited into the story. But so does Lois. I'm not really interested in, the fashions either. But when Lois is modeling and talking to me about the dresses, and some of them are squeaky, I'm very interested.
It's good.
Yeah, she's hilarious. So, and that's what I love to see. Is people stepping outside of their normal comfort zone, like we've done, because I know that certainly for myself, speaking for myself, when I first started in property 4 years ago, I'd never dream of going live and just talking to people, and much less about my own personal story. I don't know how you feel about that, Dan.
I think that's I think that's a really good observation. I think that one of the things that people need to do is not necessarily. I don't necessarily believe in stepping outside your comfort zone and kind of pushing the envelope, but I do believe in being really kind of honest and authentic. And I think that when people are like that, lots of people won't like that and the way that you are, and lots of people will really like that. But I think there's only one way of being, and that's super authentic. Because if you're not being yourself, at some point, that probably won't make you happy. So I think being authentic, and I think YouTube is a great platform for people. We're not here to, I'm not on YouTube for any reason other than I enjoy sharing my story. I enjoy the process, and if people like it, if people want to, to engage, then fantastic. And I think that's really nice. I think it's a really good way of, giving back, maybe to a certain degree.
Yes, yeah. Lois has said, "Oh, thanks, Dad. Thanks, Lo."
We'll be doing what do they do when two people
collab?
Collab. That's it. There we go.
Down with the, what do you mean? You do the collab with Lois, and am I Scotch Mist? Yeah.
Well, are we doing collabs? Is this a collab?
It could be, but I need to come on your channel, Dan.
I should do that. I don't know how to go live. That's a bit beyond my.
We can record it, and you can do your fancy footwork with the editing. If you.
That's a good idea.
Lois is saying she's definitely up for the collabs.
Great. Well, the last time we spoke, we had a three-way, didn't we? A live three-way.
Dad, do you think Margot will be?
I think James is probably going to be more jealous than Margot, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Dan, again for joining us and for everything that you do. And just as we close for today's show, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us? Oh, I suppose where people should go to find more Dan Jackson.
So everyone is welcome to email me. It's dan@urbanshared.com. And my YouTube channel is YouTube/C/Dan Jackson. And subscribe if you want to get notified when things get produced. Trying to do a weekly video. Failed last week because I'm working on a much bigger video, which is probably going to take probably a couple of months actually to put together. But I'm trying to put together stuff on a weekly basis. And as I say, it will be, if you're interested in property or all sorts of other kind of things that can improve you as a human being, my YouTube channel is a good place to go. And the website, urbanshared.com.
Brilliant. I encourage you, definitely. I love the Dan Jackson YouTube channel, so definitely do check that out. And what do you mean you can subscribe? Make sure if you go there you subscribe. Red button, first tap. Enjoy that. So thanks, Dan, and that's it for this week's Property Game Changers. So for now, it's goodbye from Mr. Dan Jackson.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. See you soon. Bye for now.